Hello, welcome to Blues in the Basement. This is going to be part 4 in the slide guitar series. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate a different tuning I use. The previous videos were all done using open E. This video, I'm going to use a G tuning, which is an alternative to the standard open G that people use in slide guitar. So this sounds a little bit different. It's actually my favorite tuning to use for playing slide. So in a standard G tuning for slide guitar, things are arranged so that the lowest string you have is a D note. That's the fifth. So it's a little unusual that the root note's not on the bottom. You have a fifth on the bottom. For years, I played that way. And the problem was, if I would be in open G tuning, things were configured in one way, and then I would switch to open E, they were configured in another way. Then I would play standard guitar, and it was yet another way. So after a number of years, and actually this was inspired by Keith Richards. So Keith Richards used an open G tuning, but he found that low D string on the bottom kind of useless, so he just took it off, right? So he had a 5-string guitar. So his G was on the bottom. So I kind of looked at that and I went, well, I could do something similar, but what if I put a G on the bottom here and then had a 5-string guitar? So that was easy enough to do. And then I thought, well, why don't I put a G on top? I thought, well, I wonder if I could do that. So essentially what I wound up with was the exact same configuration as an open E tuning, just tuned to an E chord, like this, right? But it's in G. So it's tuned to a G bar chord, like this. So that's tuned fairly high. The strings get kind of tense. And I do still struggle with finding the right balance for the highest string. That becomes a G string. So that's tuned up to what would normally be there. So it's a step and a half. I've tried all kinds of different gauges of strings. What seems to work the best is a 9 gauge. An 8 gauge is just too thin, even tuned up a step and a half. Just when I get aggressive playing with the slide, I just slice that thing right off. A 10 feels really good, but also it's a little too tight, so it tends to break fairly often. So 9 on top is what I usually use if I'm tuned to G. Luckily for me, when I play with my band, we tune down a half step for everything. I like that sound better. It's a little easier to say. So I have a guitar that's technically, I guess it's tuned to G flat or F sharp. And I can get away with 10s on that. It's also a shorter scale length that I use for that guitar, so I don't break strings as often. Fairly often when I use this G tuning, I will break at least one string in the course of an evening. It's the price we pay, right? So what's cool about this is it's the same configuration as open E. All my notes are in the same place. So anything I do in E, I can just do that, but now I'm in G. And then kind of twist your head around a little bit. If I'm going to play this guitar and I have to think about, all right, I'm not just going to play in G. So I want to play in A. So that's my A, right? And there's my B. And C is here. And then D, which I play a lot of in D, goes there. Now, when you start playing up on the higher register, say I'm going to be in D. A lick like that, start to get into some pretty high notes that you don't find on like an open E guitar. You have to kind of go off the fretboard to get them. So a lick like that, if I extend it, that getting up there in that range, it's pretty high notes. We're getting into, only dogs can hear it sort of territory. So it's got a really unique sound. I really like the way that sounds. So why don't I show you a couple of phrases or scales or things you can do. This would work in an open E tuning as well, but that open G tuning has a unique sound. So this guitar was actually built for me by my good friend Bruce Rose from Rose Instruments, and I requested the kind of neck that could handle this high tension. And he built me a guitar with a neck that I could play softball with. I mean, this thing is thick, which is perfect. Perfect for this kind of approach when I'm using this very high tension for the open G, high open G tuning. So, let me show you a couple of things. So, one of the things I really like about this, the way that this sounds as G, is I like to do a lot of pentatonic major. Just has a neat, bright sound. That's a cool lick. Maybe we should start with that one. That is something that I heard Paul Black do one time. Paul Black is a legendary guitar player from Wisconsin who was on the House of Blues label at one point in time, and just an amazing slide guitar player. His playing was sublime. And folks like Sonny Landreth were big fans of Paul Black's playing as well. So I got this lick off of something he did once. So it's pentatonic major. So you're basically at the 4th fret, 2nd fret, and you go to open string. So 4, 2, open, and then next 2nd string is 2 open, and then there's a little hammer on there. So a little finger picking goodness in there to get that. Cool little lick. So that kind of is built on that scale. So it's 4, 2, open, 2, open, 1, open, 2, open. And you can get a ton of stuff that. So I can play that open, or I can play it at the 5th fret if I want to slide into it. So I can play that note open, or I can play it there as well. A couple different options. So very cool. Another chunk that I do quite a lot with the pentatonic major is my root note on the 3rd string is up here on the 8th fret. So I have 5 to 8. And then I have this really cool little chunk I can use, which is going to be the 7th fret and the 9th fret on the 1st string. So cool stuff there. So those little convenient spots is whenever I play slide, I'm looking for little pieces of the scale that I can use that fall comfortably within the range of what a slide can do. And anytime I find something that's sort of symmetric on on 2 strings at least, you get some cool sounds doing that. Another approach that I like to take, and this is sort of the Derek Trucks influence, is to play those scales on a single string. So if you get that sort of single string thing going, so you want to practice your accuracy, Gets a very vocal quality to that. If you were to do that on a combination of two strings, which is this lick, sounds very different. You can't really get that fluid sort of vocal sound if you're doing it on more than one string. And licks like this one, really hard to do on more than one string. It just doesn't sound the same. So recognizing and learning those pentatonic scales, both major and minor, to be able to do that on a single string really opens up a lot of options to make some very pretty sounds. While you're practicing, you're going to make some very ugly sounds. It takes a lot of time to get that so that you're accurate. If you miss any of those notes and you're sort of flat or sharp, it's just not going to sound that pleasant. So practice, practice, practice where no one can hear you. That's my best advice, and your friends will thank me. Once you kind of figure that out on a single string, so let's say I'm in G, right? And I was doing it off of there, from my root. Then you want to learn that scale on another string. So that would be on the first string. What gets tricky about that, if you're traveling, let's say, from this territory, and as you get higher, the spacing of those frets is wider at the bottom of the neck, right? And it gets narrower as you go. So it gets harder to be accurate as you move, and you have to adjust. Helps to use your ears. And that's really I think the way that you accomplish that is having a good sense of pitch, and your ears can detect when you're sharp or flat. So if you work through that on these various strings, figure it on, so you learn it on that string. And here. And luckily, we have three of the identical strings here. So this is a G string, that's a G string, and that's a G string. So you can learn it once and apply it 3 times. And then it just starts over. So take it one string at a time and work through that pentatonic major scale until you get comfortable playing it and you can be accurate just playing the notes. Then the next challenge, and this can take years, or at the very least months, is to practice being able to play phrases that go up, ascending, and descending. Things like that. So once you get comfortable and you can do that on every string, then you start mixing in your traditional, other types where you're playing 2-note combinations. You can really start to make some interesting things start to flow. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it inspired you to try out some new things in this form of an open G tuning. If you liked the video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I put out new videos 2-3 times a week. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me all over the interwebs. Thank you very much. See you next time.